When we think of national heroes, our minds often conjure images of generals on horseback leading armies into battle, swords held high. We imagine freedom through the thunder of cannons and the clash of steel. But the national hero of the Philippines, Dr. José Rizal, was a very different kind of champion. He never commanded a single soldier. He never fired a gun in combat. His weapon was far quieter, yet infinitely more powerful in the long run. Rizal's weapon was his mind, and his ammunition was the written word. He was a doctor, he was a poet, he was a novelist, and a scholar whose ideas would ultimately ignite the flames of a revolution. This is the story of how a man of peace and intellect became the catalyst for a nation's fight for independence. Rizal's battlefield was the blank page, and his soldiers were the characters he created, the essays he penned, and the letters he sent across the world. He fought not against men, but against ignorance, injustice, and the suffocating grip of a colonial power that had ruled his homeland for over 300 years. He believed that true freedom began not with a declaration of war, but with the awakening of a people's consciousness. He sought to open the eyes of his fellow Filipinos, to make them see the truth of their situation, and to inspire in them a sense of national identity and pride. José Protasio Rizal Mercado y Alonso Realonda was born on June 19, 1861, in the verdant town of Calamba, Mount Makiling, watching over it Laguna de Bay, shimmering nearby. He was the seventh of 11 children, Francisco Mercado Teodora Alonso. His father was a hard-working tenant farmer. His mother was a highly educated and cultured woman, his first and most important teacher. From her, he inherited a love for stories, poetry learning. Even as a very young boy, little Pepe was different, not as physically robust as his older brother Paciano, but his mind was exceptionally sharp and endlessly curious. His mother would read to him in Spanish from the family's large library. He would listen, completely captivated. One night she read the fable of the moth and the flame. She warned of the danger of getting too close to the fire. Young Pepe was mesmerized by the moth's noble sacrifice for the light. This was a powerful premonition of his life's path. His early talents were impossible to ignore. Before he could write, he was sketching and sculpting with clay by the river. At 8, he wrote his first poem in Tagalog, Sa Aking Mga Kabata, to my fellow children. An astonishingly mature thought for a child, hinting at the nationalist spirit to define him. At the age of 11, Rizal left his beloved Calamba and was sent to Manila to continue his education. He enrolled at the Ateneo Municipal, a prestigious school run by Jesuit priests. It was here that his intellectual gifts truly began to shine. He consistently excelled in all his subjects: philosophy, science, poetry, rhetoric, graduating at the top of his class with the highest honors. The Jesuits' rigorous and systematic approach to education sharpened his mind, instilling in him a discipline of thought and a passion for reasoned argument that would serve him for the rest of his life. He was not just a student. He was a leader, active in campus organizations, admired by his peers and professors alike. After finishing at Ateneo, Rizal's educational journey continued at the University of Santo Tomas. Initially, he studied philosophy and letters, but he later shifted to medicine, a decision influenced by his desire to cure his mother's advancing blindness. However, his time at UST was also a period of disillusionment. He felt the Dominican friars who ran the university were discriminatory towards Filipino students, often stifling their intellectual curiosity rather than encouraging it. With the secret support of his brother Paciano, he decided to leave for Europe in 1882. Rizal's time in Europe was a period of breathtaking intellectual and personal growth. He was like a sponge, eagerly soaking up ideas, soaking up culture, soaking up languages, soaking up liberal philosophies. He mastered over 20 languages: Spanish, French, German, English, Italian. His language skill unlocked the world's treasury of knowledge. Beyond Madrid, Paris, Germany, admired for scholarship and science, Heidelberg University town. He specialized in ophthalmology there, trained by renowned eye doctors. He promised to cure his mother's failing eyesight. In Germany, he completed his most important work, surrounded by Europe's intellectual freedom. He found the courage and inspiration to write a novel exposing his homeland's social cancer. Liberty, equality, human rights contrast with oppression back home. This new thinking pushed him from observer to active reform advocate. He joined the propaganda movement in Spain, Not armed rebellion, but peaceful reform through writing. They demanded the Philippines be treated as a province of Spain. His essays in La Solidaridad, his story is a testament to the incredible power of ideas. In the year 1887, while in Berlin, Germany, José Rizal published the book that would forever change the course of Philippine history, Noli Me Tángere, a Latin phrase meaning, "touch me not." This was not just a novel. It was a mirror held up to Philippine society, reflecting in painful detail the injustices and the abuses committed by the Spanish colonial government and the powerful religious orders. The book was a work of fiction, but its characters and situations were drawn directly from reality. It told the story of the idealistic young Crisostomo Ibarra, who returns to the Philippines from Europe filled with dreams of reform, only to be crushed by the corrupt and entrenched powers of the establishment. The novel was a sensation and a scandal. Its pages were filled with unforgettable characters who represented different facets of society. Maria Clara, Cesar, Crispin, Basilio, Tasio, Padre Damaso, Padre Salvi. Through their interwoven stories, Rizal masterfully exposed the greed, cruelty, and moral bankruptcy of the ruling system. The Spanish authorities were absolutely terrified of the book. They immediately banned it, declaring it heretical, subversive, and a threat to public order. Owning or reading a copy of Noli Me Tángere became a criminal act, punishable by imprisonment or exile. But this prohibition only made the novel more desirable. Smuggled copies were passed from hand to hand in secret, read in hushed tones by candlelight. 4 years after the explosive debut of his first novel, Rizal published its sequel in 1891 while in Ghent, Belgium. He titled it El Filibusterismo, which translates to The Reign of Greed. If Noli Me Tángere was a diagnosis of the social cancer, El Filibusterismo was a more radical and desperate exploration of the cure. The tone of the second novel is markedly different. It is darker, angrier, more cynical. The hopeful idealism of Crisostomo Ibarra is gone, replaced by a burning desire for vengeance. The book reflects Rizal's own growing frustration with the failure of the Spanish government to heed his calls for peaceful reform. The novel follows the return of Crisostomo Ibarra, who has now transformed himself into the mysterious and wealthy jeweler Simoun. Disguised and embittered, Simoun moves through the highest circles of colonial society, secretly fueling corruption and abuse. His sinister plan is to make the government so rotten and the suffering of the people so unbearable that they will have no choice but to rise up in a violent and bloody revolution. He uses his wealth to encourage greed among officials and his influence to push the oppressed to the very brink of despair, with Simoun's planned uprising failing at the last moment. His bomb is thrown into the sea by a young student who chooses a path of hope and gradual progress over one of violent retribution. On the cold, dark morning of December 30th, 1896, José Rizal was marched to his execution at Bagumbayan Field, now known as Luneta Park. He remained calm and composed, a man at peace with his fate. He even requested to face the firing squad, a request denied because traitors were meant to be shot in the back. But in a final act of defiance and honor, as the shots rang out, he used his last ounce of strength to twist his body around so that he fell facing the rising sun. He was just 35 years old. His death was meant to extinguish the flames of rebellion, but instead it became the fuel that made the fire burn brighter than ever. The night before his execution, in the solitude of his prison cell, Rizal wrote his final masterpiece. It was a long, untitled poem hidden inside a small alcohol stove and given to his sister. Today it is known as Mi Ultimo Adios, or My Last Farewell. This poem is a beautiful and heartbreaking goodbye to his parents, his siblings, his beloved Josephine Bracken, his adored motherland. It is not a poem of anger or regret, but of serene acceptance and an undying love for the country he was about to die for. It became a sacred text for the revolutionaries, a final testament from their martyr hero. Rizal's martyrdom galvanized the Filipino people. His death proved to them that there could be no hope for justice or reform under Spanish rule. The revolution intensified, and though it would face many challenges, the seed of independence that Rizal had planted with his words and watered with his blood had now grown into an unshakable tree. He became the symbol of the nation's struggle, a martyr whose sacrifice gave a moral and spiritual center to the fight for freedom. He had shown his people that it was a noble and beautiful thing to die for one's country. Today, José Rizal's legacy is everywhere in the Philippines. His face is on the 1 peso coin. Monuments in his honor stand in almost every town plaza. Schools and universities are named after him. His life and works are a required subject for all students. December 30th, the anniversary of his execution, is a national holiday known as Rizal Day. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. See you in my next video.